Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My fiancé, Ethan Smith, fell in love with Olivia Chen. For her, he willingly gave up his right to inherit and insisted on breaking off our engagement. I tried to reason with him gently. She only got close to you because of that rare, almost mythical little book of yours, I said. She knows she doesn't stand a chance marrying into a family like yours. But he wouldn't listen. When Olivia ran away from home and got into an accident, Ethan stopped making a fuss. He went along with the elders' wishes and married me. 15 years later, on our wedding anniversary, our plane went down. In that moment of life and death, he threw away my parachute. His voice was cold, detached. Emma Carter, now do you understand what despair really means? As I plunged into a free fall, a strong sense of weightlessness overtook me. Only then did I finally realize just how much he had hated me all along. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back at the engagement banquet between the Carter and Smith families. I put down my chopsticks and turned solemnly to the elders. "Grandpa," I said, "please allow Ethan Smith to marry my younger sister, Olivia. This should have been our 15th wedding anniversary. We had agreed to take a trip to Europe to celebrate." I held tightly onto him, filled with anxiety and fear. But he looked relieved, as if finally freed. With a cold face, he pushed me away and threw my parachute aside. "Emma Carter," he said icily, "now you understand what despair is." Olivia was the same. Actually, she was even more helpless than you. I froze. Without realizing it, I let go of him. My hands clenched so tightly that my knuckles turned white. After all these years, his heart still belonged to my long-dead sister, Olivia Chen. He hated me that much. The plane continued to fall. As the sense of free fall grew stronger, I suddenly found myself unafraid. I even found it laughable how stupid he was. "Olivia never loved you," I said. "She was in love with your uncle." Unfortunately, before I could finish the last two words, a violent impact flung me across the cabin. Pain overwhelmed me and I lost consciousness. I never expected to be reborn, but I came back to the moment when the Carter family had just brought me home. I was the real daughter of the Carters, born after 10 hours of labor. But on the same day, a nurse who also gave birth secretly swapped me out. Ethan Smith, the firstborn grandson of the Smith family, had carried the burden of high expectations since childhood. The pressure made him withdrawn and quiet. He never smiled, and no one wanted to play with him. It was Olivia Chen who first took his hand. They went to school together, did homework together. They were childhood sweethearts, innocent and close. When the Carters and Smiths arranged the engagement, Ethan had been overjoyed. Then I returned, the real daughter, the one who disrupted everything. Now that I was back, the Smith family naturally wouldn't allow Olivia to marry into their household. Prominent families care about bloodlines. I was the true Carter heiress, the only rightful successor to the Carter Corporation. Because of that, Ethan and Olivia could no longer form the powerful alliance they had dreamed of. So Ethan invited me to dinner at a restaurant. What he didn't tell me was that he had also invited Olivia. When he saw me, he acted meek and pitiful, as if he was the one who had been wronged. He watched my expression carefully and said in a soft voice, "Emma, I'm sorry for all the hardships you've gone through over the years. You're the true daughter of the Carter family. I have no right to compete with you for anything. I won't fight. I never wanted to because you're my sister." Olivia gazed at him with affection, her cheeks flushing as she shyly looked down. "But Ethan and I love each other," she said. "You already have everything. Could you please let me have Ethan? I promise I'll never forget your kindness. If you ever need anything, no matter if it's walking through fire or blades, I'll repay you." Watching her pathetic act, I couldn't help but laugh. Despite how bad her performance was, she had still completely fooled Ethan. In my previous life, I had tried to persuade him to see that marrying me was the right decision, because Olivia never truly loved him. The only reason Olivia often went to Ethan's house and acted like she wanted to be his friend was so she could get close to that rare, almost mythical little book of his. Ethan was cold, distant, and born into privilege. Yet he carried an innate air of authority that made others instinctively respect him. But the one Olivia really wanted to marry was never Ethan. It was his uncle, Jacob Smith. Her passionate confessions to Ethan were just for show, brought on by my sudden return. With me back, she was no longer the high and mighty Aries of the Carter family. Not only did she no longer stand a chance with Jacob, but there was a real possibility that her princess life would collapse into one of struggle, scrambling just to afford daily meals. She had long been used to being adored and flattered. If she could marry into the Smith family now, not only would she get revenge on me, but she'd also secure a lifetime of luxury. Her intentions couldn't be more obvious. Yet Ethan was blind to them. Instead, he blamed me for being harsh with her. "If anyone's to blame, it's you," he said. "Olivia is a victim too. If you hadn't come back, she'd still be the only Carter eyes. We'd be married by now, and everything that belonged to the Carter family would be hers." He said Olivia was gentle and didn't like conflict, that I should be grateful to her and treat her with extra care. How could I even think of stealing her marriage? Ethan noticed that I was eating elegantly, unfazed by his speech. His patience snapped. "Emma Carter," he said coldly, "I'm telling you right now, give up. The only woman I'll ever marry is Olivia." Only then did I set down my knife and fork, raise my head and say calmly, "Are you done? Then I'll be leaving. Don't ever bother me with petty drama like this again. It's a complete waste of my time." Then I deliberately turned to Olivia and added with a smile, "You know, Dad put me in charge of the company now. I'm really busy." Behind me, I heard the sound of a woman sniffling pitifully, followed by Ethan's soft voice comforting her. In my previous life, Olivia had realized she would never marry into wealth. She ran away from home and got into an accident. After she died, Ethan didn't lash out or resist. He simply followed the family's arrangements and married me. After we got married, he behaved properly. He was cold to me, yes, but unlike other rich men, he never cheated behind my back. I once thought that was enough for a marriage between two elite families to live with mutual respect and boundaries. But I never expected he'd hated me all along. It wasn't until the moment our plane crashed that he finally spoke the words he had kept buried for 15 years. He had always believed I was the one who broke them apart, who ruined his relationship with Olivia. That same evening, Ethan's parents invited me to dinner at their home. He pulled me aside into a room, shut the door, and tried to strike a deal with me. "Emma," he said, "the Carter family only looks glamorous on the surface. In reality, you've been relying on our alliance with the Smiths. If you can convince both families to let Olivia marry me, then I, as the heir of the Smith family, promise you this. As long as I live, the Carter Corporation will always have the Smiths as their strongest ally." I couldn't help but laugh. He was just like in my past life, confident, arrogant, and so sure that he'd always sit securely on his throne at the Smith Corporation. With me at the helm, the Carter family wouldn't go bankrupt anytime soon. And even if we did eventually hit rock bottom in the industry, I could always come crawling back later. There was no rush. But Ethan thought I was just unwilling to let go. He sneered. "No surprise. You were raised by poor people. If it were Olivia, she would never selfishly tear two lovers apart just to satisfy herself. I don't know what Uncle Carter was thinking, handing the whole corporation over to you. He's probably going to spend the rest of his retirement cleaning up your messes." No matter how much he mocked me, I remained calm and unbothered because I was waiting for the show to begin. In my past life, Olivia had tried everything she could to get close to Jacob Smith. All she wanted was to get into his bed. I doubted she'd act any differently this time around. At the dinner table that night, all the Smith family elders were present, including Jacob himself. The patriarch of the Smiths, a man known for his stern demeanor, was especially kind to me. He said, "I should have grown up like a princess, carefree and protected, but instead I had been taken away by the wrong family and had suffered so much alone." He smiled gently at me. "Grandpa knows you don't lack real estate, jewelry, or money. So my gift to you is this: 3 wishes. As long as I'm here, no matter what you ask, I will fulfill them." I knew it was because I looked so much like his wife when she was young. That's why he treated me with such warmth. Even though he was normally so strict, I shouldn't have taken advantage of his kindness. But more than anything, I didn't want to repeat the same life again. I had no intention of wasting any more of my life on Ethan Smith. So I put down my chopsticks and solemnly turned to Grandpa. Please, I said. Let Ethan be with my sister Olivia. They were meant for each other. I was the one who showed up uninvited and took everything away from her. If I also take the man she loves, I'll never live with peace of mind. Besides, I didn't love Ethan. Two people who don't love each other will never find happiness together. Grandpa's expression didn't change. He remained unreadable. But Ethan looked utterly shocked, and I thought I saw the corner of Jacob Smith's lips lift slightly. It was a small movement, but I was sure. He smiled. Of course, the Smiths wouldn't publicly spread the news about the broken engagement, but I told Olivia myself. I've already asked the Smith elders to cancel the engagement. I said. From here on it's up to you. She couldn't bear the thought of falling from her pedestal into the abyss. So she hired people online to spread the story like wildfire. Netizens everywhere praised her as a true love warrior, supporting her for breaking social norms and fighting for her love. The Smith elders were painted as heartless schemers who only cared about power, and public opinion turned against them. Over the next few days, the stock price of the Smith Corporation took a continuous hit. Ethan got a brutal scolding from his father, who barked, "Business will always be more important than women." Then he added, "I know you don't like Emma Carter, but I'm not asking for much. All you have to do is marry her. What you do after, have affairs, keep mistresses, mess around, I don't care as long as it doesn't make it into the media. I won't say a word." The Carters aren't what they used to be, he continued. But a dying camel is still bigger than a horse. Several of their projects are critical to the Smith Corporation's future development. Besides, Emma looks just like your grandmother did when she was young. If you marry her, the Smith Corporation will be yours. There won't be a place for Jacob. His father laid out all the pros and cons. But Grandpa didn't bother with subtlety. He just said flat out, "Whoever marries Emma gets to inherit the company." Ethan, fuming from all the pressure, came looking for me. "Emma Carter," he said through clenched teeth. "I really underestimated you. What did you do to my grandfather? How did you make him value you, an outsider, more than his own grandson?" I deliberately provoked him. "I look like your grandmother. Of course, your grandpa loves me more. In my past life, I didn't learn until years after marrying into the Smith family that Grandpa and Grandma had also been in an arranged marriage. One of those classic stories where love came after the wedding. But Grandma died in childbirth, giving birth to Jacob. And ever since then, Grandpa couldn't look at him without being reminded that his beloved wife had died because of him. He was always cold to Jacob, which gave Ethan the false impression that as the eldest grandson, the Smith Corporation was destined to be his. "I won't hold it against you for the scolding I got from your family," I told him. "But you'd better stop while you're ahead. Grandpa may be fooled, but I'm not. You say you're calling off the engagement to give me and Olivia your blessing, but you make it sound like we're forcing you, like you're the victim here. Don't try to play games with me. This whole act of yours, pretending to retreat so you can advance, acting all harmless while scheming behind the scenes, it's honestly pathetic." I couldn't help but laugh at how ridiculous he was. "Who do you think you are?" I snapped. "Do you really think the whole world revolves around you? That every woman is madly in love with you? I agreed to call off the engagement," I continued, "because I simply don't like you. That's it. And frankly, I want to see whether you and your one true love, Olivia, can really grow old together, hand in hand. I'm just here for the show, so don't flatter yourself. Even if you were madly in love with me," I added, "even if you die without me, I still wouldn't give you a second glance." He was so furious he could barely breathe, his chest rising and falling rapidly, but I couldn't be bothered. I picked up my purse and left. I had dinner plans with Jacob. In my past life, not long after Grandpa Smith passed away, Jacob changed. He abandoned his aloof, monk-like lifestyle and transformed into a ruthless, sharp businessman. In just 2 years, he had become the true leader of the Smith Corporation. The thing was, he never married. He lived a life of restraint, so much so that even I once wondered if he had some deep psychological aversion to women. But now, if I joined forces with him, we could each get what we wanted. "Mr. Smith," I said, "let's get married. In exchange, I'll help you take control of the Smith Corporation." His expression didn't change, but the pressure in the air around him shifted. He seemed slightly irritated. After a long pause, he cut straight to the point. You want to use me to get back at Ethan, don't you? Well, it wasn't entirely about revenge. Mostly, it was because I knew Jacob wasn't interested in women. Even though there was no love between us, at least I wouldn't have to worry about him cheating on me after we got married. The elders of both the Smith and Carter families valued this marriage alliance greatly. But since I was now in charge of Carter Corporation's future, marrying a fake Aries into their family wouldn't benefit either company in building a deeper partnership. Besides, Grandpa Smith liked me. If Jacob were to marry me, perhaps Grandpa would be moved by affection and set aside his grudges. After all, Jacob was still his biological son. Blood is thicker than water. Jacob rubbed his fingertips together, seemingly deep in thought. Then he simply nodded and agreed. Meanwhile, Ethan Smith was happily traveling around with Olivia Chun, completely unaware that danger was closing in. They posted plenty of photos together on social media. Netizens gushed about how perfect they were for each other, urging them to stay together forever. I was publicly labeled as vicious, arrogant, oppressive, a third party bent on ruining true love. The negative press began to affect the Smith Corporation's stock, which started to decline slightly. Everyone was waiting for my downfall, waiting to see me cast aside by high society and utterly humiliated. Just when it seemed like the world had turned against me, Jacob bought out every major billboard in the city and confessed to me in full view. He even had a pink heart drawn in the sky. The city was in an uproar. Ethan panicked and stormed over to confront me. Emma Carter, he demanded. Since when did you start hooking up with my uncle? I always thought you were cold and dignified, but turns out you're nothing but a manipulative woman. I corrected him immediately. Is this the level of class the Smith family raised in their precious firstborn grandson? I'm now your uncle's fiancé. By seniority, you should be calling me aunt. I imagine Grandpa Smith would be quite pleased to hear that. He adores me after all, and I'm sure he'd be happy to see me marry his son. As for you, I added, you get to marry Olivia, the woman you've been longing for. Isn't that what you've always wanted? His face turned pale with rage, and I couldn't help but laugh. From this moment on, he would never again have the chance to fight for control of the Smith Corporation. In my past life, for over a decade of our marriage, Ethan never truly let go of Olivia. Even on his deathbed, his last request was for me to release him. That's how deep his love for her ran. 15 years of obsession. And even in his final moments, she was still all he thought about. Grandpa Smith truly cared about me. He also knew Ethan didn't love me. Even if we were forced to marry, it would only breed resentment. So he agreed to let Ethan marry Olivia and for me to marry Jacob instead. The union between the two families shook the city. After the wedding, Ethan volunteered to travel abroad for business negotiations and brought Olivia with him. He had been so sure of himself, expecting to return in a week with $1 billion contract that would place him one step closer to becoming CEO of the Smith Corporation. But things didn't go as planned. The other party deliberately stalled negotiations and came up with endless excuses to reject the deal. With no contract signed, Ethan was forced to remain overseas. Meanwhile, Jacob quietly began building support within the company. He gathered allies and expanded his influence. Each day, he came home on time to eat dinner with me. He was thoughtful and gentlemanly. On weekends, he even cooked for me himself. He knew all my preferences. We didn't feel like a couple bound by an emotionless arranged marriage. In fact, it felt almost like we'd been married for years. One evening, I teased him casually. You seem to know my likes and dislikes a little too well. You're not secretly in love with me, are you? He was like a god, cold and untouchable. Someone like him would never lower himself to win my affection, unless he actually liked me. Isn't it basic husbandly duty to understand what his wife enjoys? He said. He was still as composed and refined as ever, but I noticed the tips of his ears turning pink. I chuckled to myself. Who would have thought that someone who always seemed above it all could actually blush? Ethan ended up stuck overseas for an entire month. Still, he failed to close the deal. But when Olivia complained that Nordic winters were too cold and begged to return home, he abandoned the $1 billion contract and brought her back. That foolish disregard for the bigger picture sparked outrage among the company's shareholders. Many of the major investors withdrew their support for Ethan and pledged loyalty to Jacob instead. That's when Ethan finally realized the crisis he was in and began to panic. Only now did he understand the benefits of marrying me. Olivia was a fake eyes. She had no say in the business world. But I was the sole heir to Carter Corporation. If he hadn't acted so recklessly back then and had married me instead, he never would have ended up in such a helpless, isolated situation. The internal battles within the Smith Corporation were already wearing him down. He was overwhelmed and outmatched. Frustrated with his failures at work, he naturally brought his foul mood home. He began neglecting Olivia. And Olivia, too, realized that Ethan wasn't the kind of man she could rely on for a lifetime. So she made a bold move. Right under my nose, she began trying to seduce Jacob. When serving food, she'd intentionally let her fingers brush against his. She once pretended to have low blood sugar and conveniently collapsed toward him. Though I caught the clear look of disdain in Jacob's eyes, I was still angry that he didn't move away. Even if he disliked her, he still caught her. Things escalated when Olivia blatantly knocked on his study door one night. I couldn't take it anymore and pushed the door open. There she was, kneeling at Jacob's feet, her eyes shimmering with tears as if she were begging him for something. And he, as always, sat above it all, utterly unmoved, untouched by worldly nonsense. Even though Olivia was wearing thin, nearly see-through clothes, her skin pale and exposed in the dim light, pitiful in a way some might find alluring, Jacob's expression remained calm and composed. When they saw me, both froze. I shot Jacob a sharp glare with my wide eyes and marched toward my dear sister with fury. Without hesitation, I slapped her hard across the face. "What? You think I'm dead?" I shouted. "Ethan's out of town, and what you do behind his back isn't my business. But the one thing you should have never done was lay a finger on Jacob. You really think you can steal my man? Are you out of your mind?" Olivia slowly stood up and picked up her coat from the floor. "Why do you get to marry Jacob?" she snapped. "If you died out there, you should have stayed dead. I'm the one who should have married him." She laughed like she'd lost it, angry and desperate all at once. "Go ahead," she sneered. "Report me to the Smith family elders if you want, but what proof do you have? I'll never admit to anything. I'll even say Jacob forced himself on me. No matter how much Grandpa Smith favors you, when it comes to family honor, you still mean nothing." With that, she smugly tossed her hair and stormed out. Of course, it was a family scandal. I wasn't about to take it to Grandpa Smith, but just looking at Jacob still annoyed me. I turned to leave, but before I could take a step, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms, sitting me down on his lap. "Were you jealous just now?" he asked. He held me too tightly. I couldn't break free. I turned my head away, refusing to look at him. I knew he didn't care for Olivia. If he had, she would have succeeded in seducing him in our last life, and he wouldn't have remained single his whole life. But still I was mad. He clearly saw through her trick, so why didn't he shut her down sooner? By not acting, he made Olivia think she had a chance, gave her enough rope to push things even further. Jacob reached out, pinched my chin gently, and turned my face toward his eyes locked onto mine. "I admit it," he said quietly. "I did it on purpose. I wanted to see how you'd react. I wanted to know if you cared." I stared at him, confused. But he looked at me so seriously as he said, "Emma Carter, I like you, but you're so calm, so rational. I just wanted to know if you'd get jealous, if I mattered to you." In that moment, he no longer looked like a man detached from the world. I saw nervousness in his eyes, longing and possessiveness. Without thinking, I leaned forward and kissed the corner of his lips. I pulled back just as quickly and looked up at him. "Well, do you know now?" He touched the spot where I'd kissed him, his ears turning red. But then, without warning, he flipped the script, wrapped one arm around my waist, lifted my chin with the other, and kissed me. It was awkward and unpracticed, but forceful. His breath was hot, his presence overwhelming. He didn't give me a chance to resist. When it was over, he buried his face in my neck. His breathing was uneven. I lay softly against his chest, my head spinning, slightly breathless. Before I could even react, he scooped me up in his arms and carried me straight to the bedroom. Leaning close to my ear, he murmured, "From now on, I'm moving back into the master bedroom. I'm done sleeping in the study." When Ethan Smith returned home, Olivia Chen was the first to stir up trouble. She played the victim and claimed I had not only humiliated her, but even slapped her across the face. That man, as if he'd lost all sense, immediately came rushing over to scold me. "I've never seen a rich girl as vicious as you," he snapped. "You and Olivia may not be related by blood, but the Carter family raised her for over 20 years. Your parents didn't even kick her out when you came back. Why do you insist on making her life miserable? It's bad enough that you keep picking on her, but now you're actually hitting her. Do you think I'm dead or something?" His tone dripped with sarcasm. "I seriously don't get what my uncle sees in you," he scoffed. "He's always been so cold and aloof, and yet he's willing to marry someone like you. Since you couldn't get me, you turned your attention to him instead. You're disgusting. Absolutely shameless." I wasn't even mad. Honestly, I wanted to laugh. He was so deeply fooled that the metaphorical grass on his head could have grown into an entire field. And yet he still defended Olivia. It was foolish and almost cute in its own pathetic way. "Ethan," I said calmly, "instead of wasting your time yelling at me, why don't you keep a closer eye on my sweet little sister? You're so oblivious that your head's already covered in green, and you don't even realize it. Keep parading her around like a trophy, and you're going to end up the laughingstock of every dinner party in the city. If there's one thing a man can't stand, it's being publicly humiliated." My words infuriated him. He lunged forward to push me, but Jacob caught his arm mid-motion. Jacob's eyes were sharp and his voice was cold as ice. "Is this how you treat your aunt?" he asked. "Is this the kind of respect your parents taught you? If you don't understand manners or how to respect your elders, I'd be more than happy to teach you on their behalf." Ethan was clearly intimidated by Jacob. With no comeback, he turned and left, tail between his legs. After a string of failed business deals, Ethan not only damaged the company's profits but also completely lost the trust of those around him. Many of the company's senior members had originally supported him as the future head of the Smith Corporation, since he was the eldest grandson. But his lack of competence made it clear that handing the company over to him would only lead to decline. As a result, more and more people began to support Jacob. Even though he had only recently entered the company, he was both capable and decisive. His results spoke for themselves. Ethan was under immense pressure and in an increasingly difficult position. He thought that maybe Olivia would realize he couldn't offer her power, status, or luxury and would choose to divorce him while she was still young and beautiful, hoping to attach herself to a more high-quality man. But to my utter surprise, at a recent family gathering, the two of them stood up and proudly announced that she was pregnant. I was shocked, but also excited to watch the drama unfold. I walked over to the glowing couple with a smile full of mischief. So I said, "Is this a real pregnancy or a fake one?" Ethan's face darkened. "Why would we lie about something like this?" he snapped. Olivia gently placed her hand on her still flat belly, a maternal glow lighting up her face. "Ethan, don't argue with my sister," she said sweetly. "We're younger. Maybe we moved a bit fast and made them feel pressured. But it's a good thing for Grandpa to get to hold his great-grandchild in this lifetime. Emma, you shouldn't take it to heart." "Why would I?" I smiled. "I'm thrilled. Honestly, watching you dig your own graves is far more entertaining than doing it myself. A few words from me and you'll be crying on your knees in no time. I get it. You're losing ground in the company and desperate not to be pushed out. So you're pulling all-nighters just not to work, but to make a baby. Grandpa has more heirs now, and that means more people to split the inheritance with. Dozens of billions are at stake. But unlike you two, Jacob and I have actual ability. We don't need children to boost our head count." My words struck a nerve. Their faces darkened with fury, but I wasn't interested in bickering with them. Arguing would only bring me down to their level. What I did want was to stir things up and let them turn on each other. So I dropped a bomb. "Ethan," I said coolly, "I suggest you get a fertility test. Don't spend your own money raising someone else's child." A flicker of panic and confusion flashed in Olivia Chen's eyes, because the child wasn't his. In our last life, Ethan and I were married for 15 years and never had a single child. At first, I thought it was my fault. I saw countless specialists and drank endless Chinese herbal medicine. But in the end, the problem was with him. He was infertile. In front of me, he naturally assumed I was just bitter and jealous, accusing Olivia out of spite and making up nonsense. But the seed of doubt had already been planted. It would take root and grow sooner or later. As Olivia's belly visibly grew, Ethan finally went for a secret checkup. The result? Infertility. The deeper the love, the deeper the hurt. But what I didn't expect was that he actually fainted on the spot. Those days when he was hospitalized, I had a blast. I didn't have to see his irritating face every day, and my work efficiency skyrocketed. But once he was discharged and came home, I noticed something had changed in his eyes. He suddenly seemed far more experienced, more world-weary, almost exactly like he'd been in his 40s in our previous life. That night, he cornered me at the end of the hallway. "Emma, I was wrong. Please forgive me." My instincts told me he had remembered our past life. "You still like me, don't you?" he said. "Otherwise, why would you tell me the child Olivia's carrying isn't mine? If you want, I can divorce her right now and marry you." I stayed calm. "And what about Jacob?" I asked. "You're planning to marry your own aunt? What does that make of ethics, of basic decency?" He looked completely unbothered. "My uncle doesn't like women. While I was in the hospital, I had a dream. In the dream, he never married. We were husband and wife, and we were happy. Grandpa adores you. He'd agree to anything you asked, especially after promising you 3 wishes." At this point, he had either been reborn too, or somehow regained the memories of his past life. I laughed. "Are you trying to fool a child?" To the very end, the only person he ever truly loved was Olivia Chin. How could he and I ever have loved each other? I understood now. He probably had remembered the past. Before Grandpa died, he named Ethan as successor to the company only because of me, because he respected me and bore pressure from all the shareholders. That's how Ethan learned marrying me would benefit him. And now he wanted to do it all over again. Use me to take back the company. Men like him were dangerous. Once they got what they wanted, they'd destroy everything. Companies, families, even society. The only smart move was to outmaneuver him. Let him think I was considering it while I set my own trap. "You humiliated me over and over for Olivia," I said slowly. "If I were to forgive you just because you say a few sweet words, wouldn't that make me look weak and easy to manipulate? What would people think of me then? They'd think I'm a desperate woman chasing after love, a doormat with no dignity. I'm the CEO of Carter Corporation, not some lovesick puppy. Don't I deserve a little pride?" Seeing that I was starting to waver, he relaxed and asked, "Then what do you want? Just tell me what will make you happy. I'll do anything." I raised an eyebrow. "Anything?" I asked. "Even if it involves Olivia?" "You already know I hate her," I said. "She took my family, stole my place, enjoyed my luxury, and even stole you." Suppressing the disgust in my throat, I forced myself to say the next part. "I want you to expose everything she's done publicly. Her cheating, her manipulations, the fact that she's pregnant with another man's child while still married. I want the whole world to see what kind of person she really is." He went silent, clearly deep in thought. I tilted my head and asked pointedly, "You know, in all this, you might actually be the biggest victim, but judging by the look on your face, are you still not over her?" I paused, watching him carefully. "Of course, if you're still emotionally attached, if you don't want to be torn apart online, I'll respect that. I won't push you, but looking at the way you are now, how could I ever marry someone like you? Let's just forget it." He panicked, grabbed my wrist, and swore, "I'll make sure she's completely ruined." I told Jacob everything, every single detail. Now that we were married, I had no intention of hiding anything from him. Of course, I didn't mention I was reborn. At first, he frowned, clearly displeased. "You really have that little faith in your husband?" he asked, slightly sarcastic. "You want Grandpa to see his true colors and kick him out of the family? You should have just told me. I'll take care of it. I guarantee you'll be satisfied." He was no longer the cold, unreadable man who never changed expression all year long. Now he was showing his emotions, wearing them openly in front of me. I couldn't help but find him more and more endearing. I wanted to kiss him, but I didn't want to make him arrogant, so I settled for pinching and rubbing his face instead. Let me play with you a little, I teased. It's only fun if I'm the one in control. Ethan, for his part, was ruthless. He crafted a whole image of himself online as the innocent, loyal, heartbroken man. On his social media, he unleashed a storm against Olivia Chen. Post after post, all sharp, direct, and brutally honest. Not a shred of mercy left. He was determined to destroy her completely. I laughed. So this was a man, the same man who in our past life couldn't stop thinking about Olivia, even on his deathbed. Now he cut her off as if she'd never meant a thing. I didn't like Olivia, not even a little. But if Ethan had even shown a sliver of compassion, I might have respected him more. Online, people were in chaos. Some said they'd never believe in love again. Others swore off fairy tale marriages with the wealthy. All those arranged marriages that turn into love, just fiction, they said, lies. Men sympathized with Ethan, saying he'd been publicly humiliated. Women cursed Olivia, calling her manipulative. She may not be the Carters' biological daughter, they said, but they raised her for over 20 years. She could have lived a quiet, stable life, wanted for nothing. And instead, she pulled stunt after stunt, each one worse than the last. Eventually, Carter Corporation's official account posted a public statement, severing all ties with her. Ethan was cunning too. He hid the truth about his infertility and shifted all the blame to Olivia. Since he was technically a victim, the divorce left her with nothing, not a single cent. He was devastated and terrified. He refused to sign the divorce papers. You can't divorce me, he said. Your marital status will only ever say widowed, not divorced. He had nowhere to go. The Carters kicked him out. His reputation was in ruins. No company would ever dare hire him again. He'd be pointed at on the street like a cautionary tale. And Olivia, pregnant, penniless. She couldn't even survive a day without money. So, she decided to go down swinging. If she had to die, she'd rather die clinging to the Smith family name. Ethan finally snapped. He slapped her hard. So hard that blood dripped from the corner of her mouth, and her cheeks swelled instantly. Olivia Chen, he said through gritted teeth. You betrayed me. And even now I haven't demanded compensation. I could have left you buried in debt. I've already shown you more mercy than you deserve. Then he glanced at me, who'd been quietly enjoying the drama from the sidelines, and added, But I guess this is what I get for being blind, passing up the woman who truly loved me, and marrying someone as fake and disloyal as you. I deserve everything that's happened. In that moment, he seemed to realize just how badly he'd messed up. He turned back to Ethan and begged, Please give me one more chance. I'll get rid of the baby. Just don't divorce me. I have no one else. I've relied on you since we were kids. Please don't abandon me now. Then, unbelievably, she turned and dropped to her knees right in front of me. Emma, she sobbed. I was wrong. Grandpa loves you the most. Please, please help me. Just ask him to let me stay. If he agrees, Ethan won't divorce me. If you help me this once, I swear I'll behave from now on. I won't cause trouble anymore or make you sick to your stomach. Backed into a corner, regret filled Ethan's eyes. But I wasn't a saint. I didn't intend to interfere in his fate, nor did I have the ability to change it. This is between the two of you, I said calmly. I may be a senior in name, but it's not my place to meddle. You'll have to settle it yourselves. Grandpa's health hadn't been great lately, so I added, We should keep this from him. If he hears about it, and it makes his condition worse, we'll all regret it. At that, a greedy glint sparked in Ethan's eyes. Without another word, he ordered the bodyguards to pin Olivia down, and forced her to sign the divorce papers. He didn't even let her pack her things. The housekeeper tossed her belongings out like trash, and dumped her right at the gates of the villa. That made it official. Like the saying goes, the world is big. Yet she had nowhere left to go. Raised in luxury, pampered and adored her entire life, she now had to face the cold truth. She'd become a pariah, a stray with no one to turn to. After Olivia was thrown out, Ethan didn't rest. He kept pushing me to divorce Jacob and marry him instead. I brushed him off. Grandpa's really sick. He's still in the ICU. Let's hold off for now and focus on taking care of him. He wasn't happy. You don't need to take care of Grandpa, he snapped. If he really needs help, I can hire 5 or 6 private nurses to watch him around the clock. Besides, with all the bad press lately, the Smith Corporation could use a little good news. Bringing in some joy might even improve Grandpa's health. You know how in ancient families they believed in lucky events driving away misfortune? Maybe if we get married, he'll be so happy he recovers. I was honestly impressed by his ability to twist logic. So let me get this straight. I should divorce his uncle and then marry him? Did he really think Grandpa would be happy about that? I looked him in the eye. Why are you in such a rush to marry me? What's really in it for you? His smile faltered slightly, but he quickly recovered and put on a facade of deep affection. Isn't it obvious? I love you. I let out a cold chuckle and gently pushed him away. You don't love me. I said. He was clearly reborn too. He knew every critical turning point, every outcome. In our past life, Grandpa had named him as successor during his final days because of me. Ethan knew Grandpa doted on me and that almost anything I asked for would be granted. That's why he wanted to use me to rise again. But I wasn't an idiot. There was no way I'd help him. This time I was determined to help Jacob mend his relationship with Grandpa, to heal their misunderstandings and bridge their distance. The Smith Corporation would belong to my husband, no one else. Ethan's growing desperation was obvious, so I set a plan in motion. I arranged a performance. I met privately with Grandpa's personal doctor and had him call Ethan with a fake emergency. He told Ethan that Grandpa had suddenly fallen critically ill and passed away despite emergency treatment. Ethan rushed to the hospital in a frenzy. Not a trace of grief on his face. In fact, there was a glint of gold in his eyes. When he saw my silent tears, he reached over and placed a hand on my shoulder. Emma, I know this is hard for you. It's hard for me too, he said gently. But now more than ever, we have to stay strong. Then he leaned in, lowering his voice with concern. Grandpa passed so suddenly. Did he leave a will? Who's taking over the company? And how will his estate be divided? I shoved his hand off my shoulder, cold and disgusted. Grandpa just died, I snapped. His body is still warm, and all you care about is his money? His assets were his to give to whomever he pleased. I respect his decisions. His mask cracked. Rage erupted. He grabbed me off the sofa and yelled. Did Grandpa leave the company to Jacob? So what if he did? I shot back. His eyes turned bloodshot. With a shove, he sent me tumbling back onto the couch. I hit the edge hard, pain shooting through me. The Smith Corporation is mine, he shouted. Grandpa never liked Jacob. He blamed him for Grandma's death. Jacob was born the day she died. His birthday is literally the anniversary of her death. You're telling me Grandpa gave him the company? That's not possible. He was unraveling, completely losing it, like someone who had escaped a psych ward. Then right in front of me, he dropped to his knees. He softened his tone. Auntie, he said. Please help me, okay? Grandpa's gone now anyway. You were the last person to see him. Just tell the company that Grandpa named me as the successor. Everyone knows how much Grandpa adored you. With your support, I'm confident I can defeat Uncle Jacob and lead the Smith Corporation to new heights. I won't let Grandpa down. Seeing that I didn't react, he kept trying to tempt me. If you help me once I'm in charge, I'll transfer 10% of the company's shares to you as payment. I spat right in his face. No thanks, I said coldly. You're not even that capable yet. Your ambition is massive. I already own all of Carter Corporation. I'm not interested in your measly 10%. There's no way I'd help you fool everyone. He wiped the spit off his face, his expression darkening. Just as he raised his hand to strike me, the door swung open. Jacob pushed Grandpa slowly into the room in his wheelchair. Ethan froze in place, dumbfounded. When he finally found his voice, he stammered. Grandpa, aren't you supposed to be dead? Grandpa's presence alone carried an undeniable authority. Sorry to disappoint you, he said. His voice wasn't as strong as it once was, but it was still enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. Ethan immediately backed down. He glared at me hatefully, then turned to flatter Grandpa. As long as you're healthy, that's all that matters to the family. I'm not disappointed at all. Really, I'm happy. Grandpa wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. He got straight to the point. I know everyone's been eyeing my inheritance. So to put your minds at ease, I've already finalized my will. It's in the hands of my personal attorney. If anything happens to me, Emma Carter will be the sole heir of the Smith Corporation. Ethan looked like he'd been struck by lightning. I was shocked too. I had assumed that after seeing Ethan's ugly, greedy side on the surveillance footage, Grandpa would disown him. But I never expected I would be the one to benefit. Ethan was the first to object. As an outsider, he shouted. Even if I've made mistakes, Grandpa, you can't just hand over the entire corporation to her. Without a word, Grandpa picked up his cane and whacked him squarely across the back. In my eyes, Grandpa said sternly, "You are the outsider. You may carry my blood, but what good has it done? Your respect was never for me. It was for my money. If I were just an old man picking trash off the street, would you take care of me? I'm not even dead yet," he went on. "And all you can think about is how to divide my assets. You even tried to coerce Emma into lying for you. Everyone can see right through your scheming." Ethan's face turned pale. That's when it hit him. The room wasn't just bugged, it was under full surveillance. Everything had been recorded, and it was all my setup. He panicked, shaking his head furiously. "It's all a misunderstanding. I didn't mean any of it." But Grandpa wasn't someone who softened with age. He'd lived long enough to see through people, and he wasn't about to go easy on Ethan now. Without hesitation, he reassigned Ethan to a remote division of the company in Africa, cutting him off completely from the core business. Even as he was being dragged away, Ethan didn't drop his act. He looked at me with soft, lingering eyes, trying to squeeze out every last drop of his devoted lover persona. "Emma," he said solemnly, "I don't know how long I'll be gone this time. Please take care of yourself. There's no one else in this world I care about, just you. Even if we're worlds apart, as long as you're happy, I'll be content." I burst out laughing. "You can cut the act," I said sharply. "That whole hopelessly devoted thing might work on someone else, but for me it's nauseating." Then I told him the truth. "You don't love me. If you did, then why? When the plane was going down in our last life, was your first reaction not fear, but to beg me to let Olivia go? You blamed me for tearing you apart, and begged me never to appear in your next life." His pupils dilated, stunned. He hadn't expected that. "That's right. I was reborn too. This time," I said calmly, "I'm letting you go. But too bad. Olivia doesn't love you. I've been thinking about this my whole life, but it ends up as just another first ending. The Smith Corporation is too big, and you're simply not capable. If you tried running it, bankruptcy would be inevitable. Just go to Africa and settle there. At least that outcome is much better than nothing." He fell silent. He had believed I was penniless, counting on his memory of the old romantic acts to win my sympathy, hoping I'd stop him from heading to Africa. But after the crash in our past life, his final gaze and words cut too deep. I felt no compassion for him now. The thought of his downfall brought me a sense of satisfaction. It wasn't long before news came from the African branch. Ethan Smith had fallen ill. His condition worsened rapidly, and with subpar medical care he died. In a way, he got what he deserved. Later, thanks to my efforts, the nearly 30-year rift between Grandpa and Jacob was finally healed. Grandpa had often seemed distant toward Jacob, not out of hate or lack of affection, but because Jacob's eyes reminded him so much of his late wife. Seeing those eyes made Grandpa remember her, and the pain she endured. That's why he'd avoided interaction, even though behind closed doors he always cared. Before she passed away, Grandma made Grandpa promise to look out for their youngest son. Grandpa then officially retired and transferred all his shares to me. The announcement caused a global stir. Countless top business magazines lined up to interview me since I had become the world's richest person. The first woman in history to hold that title. As for Jacob, he's now a highly valued employee in the company, but he's content because, as he says, "You are mine."